Rachel, Daniel is not coming. What do you mean he is not coming? The driver went to his apartment. His phone is switched off. His clothes are gone.
For several seconds, Rachel had nothing except the soft music playing inside the church. Nearly 150 guests were waiting. The flowers were arranged, the cake had been decorated, the photographer was ready. Everything was prepared for the happiest afternoon of Rachel's life, except the groom was missing. Rachel slowly looked down at the ring on her finger. Daniel had placed it there only 3 months earlier, while kneeling beside the river during a quiet evening walk. He had promised her forever. Now he had disappeared without saying goodbye. And what Rachel did not know was that Daniel had not simply run away. He had left the city that morning with a secret that would eventually change both their lives. Before we continue, tell me honestly, would you forgive someone who abandoned you on your wedding day? Stay with this story because Rachel's heartbreak was only the beginning. 3 years earlier, Rachel had met Daniel when both of them were struggling. Rachel worked as a receptionist in a small dental clinic during the day and cleaned offices twice a week to earn extra money. Daniel repaired heating systems for old apartment buildings. He was hardworking, funny, and always seemed to have a plan for the future. At least that was what Rachel believed. When Daniel's van broke down, Rachel used almost all her savings to help him replace the damaged engine. When his repair business started losing customers, she spent evenings helping him organize invoices. When he talked about opening his own maintenance company, Rachel believed him. "You will get there," she always told him. Daniel would smile and kiss her forehead. "One day, Rachel, you won't have to work another extra shift." Those words meant everything to her. So when Daniel proposed, Rachel believed her difficult years were finally leading somewhere beautiful. She spent months planning their wedding. She chose simple white flowers. She ordered a small cake. She even learned how to make Daniel's favorite desserts because she wanted to surprise him after the ceremony. But 5 days before the wedding, something changed. Daniel received a phone call while they were having dinner. He stepped outside. When he returned, his face was pale. "Who was that?" Rachel asked. "Nobody important." Rachel studied him. "You look worried." "I am just tired." She wanted to believe him. She had no idea that the phone call had come from a property company offering Daniel something he had secretly wanted for years. A chance to leave the repair business behind. A chance to become the manager of a luxury property firm. But there was a condition. He had to relocate immediately, and Daniel had already made his decision. He simply did not have the courage to tell Rachel. Instead, he made arrangements behind her back. On the morning of the wedding, Rachel woke before sunrise. She smiled at herself in the mirror. Today, she thought, everything changes. She had no idea that before sunset, she would be standing alone in front of hundreds of people, trying to understand how the man she trusted could disappear without even saying goodbye. And when Linda finally walked into the church and whispered the truth into her daughter's ear, Rachel's entire world seemed to stop. "Daniel has left," Linda repeated softly. Rachel stared at her. "Where?" Linda swallowed. "He took a train early this morning." "Where is he going?" Linda's eyes filled with tears. "He didn't say." Rachel looked toward the aisle. The empty space where Daniel should have been standing suddenly seemed larger than the entire church. Then her phone vibrated. One message from Daniel. Rachel opened it with trembling hands. There were only 7 words. "I am sorry. Please don't try to find me." Rachel read it twice, then a third time, and something inside her broke. But what Daniel did not know was that disappearing from Rachel's wedding that afternoon would be the biggest mistake of his life, because the woman he left behind that afternoon would not remain broken forever. She would rebuild herself. She would discover talents she never knew she had. She would build a company from nothing. And years later, when Daniel finally returned to her life, he would not come back as the successful man he imagined himself becoming. He would come back with a desperate request, and Rachel would have to decide whether the man who destroyed her happiest day deserved another chance. But before that could happen, Rachel first had to survive the night. And that night, someone knocked on her bedroom door with information about Daniel that would change everything she believed about the man she was supposed to marry.
Rachel did not open the bedroom door. She sat on the floor beside her bed, still wearing the wedding dress that had taken months to prepare. Her bouquet lay beside her. The white flowers were already beginning to bend. Linda knocked again. "Rachel, please, there is someone here who wants to speak with you." "I don't want to see anyone." "He says you need to hear what he has to say." Rachel wiped her face. "About Daniel?" There was silence. Then Linda answered softly, "Yes." Rachel stood. She opened the door. A tall man in a dark coat stood in the hallway. Rachel had never seen him before. "My name is Michael," he said. "I worked with Daniel." Rachel stared at him. "Worked with him where?" Michael looked toward Linda before answering. "At his repair company." Rachel's heart tightened. "Daniel doesn't have a company." Michael gave her a confused look. "He did." Rachel slowly shook her head. "No, he worked alone." Michael hesitated. "That is what he told you?" Rachel said nothing. Michael reached into his coat and removed a small envelope. He said, "I think you should read this." Rachel took it. Inside were several printed documents. She looked at the first page, then the second. Her eyes widened. Daniel had been preparing to open a new property maintenance company for almost 6 months. There were business registrations, contracts, bank statements, and something even more shocking. Rachel's name appeared on one of the documents. "What is this?" Michael lowered his voice. "Daniel used your details when applying for a business loan." Rachel's hands began to shake. "How much?" Michael looked away. "Enough to ruin you financially if the bank believes you were involved." Rachel felt as if the floor had moved beneath her. She had spent 3 years believing Daniel was simply struggling to build a small repair business. All that time, he had been planning something much bigger, and he had used her name without telling her. "Why?" Rachel whispered. Michael sighed. "That is what I don't understand." Rachel looked at him. "Then tell me what you do understand." Michael sat down. "About 2 months ago, Daniel met someone named Victor." "Who is Victor?" "A property investor." Michael explained that Victor had offered Daniel a position managing several expensive apartment buildings. But there was a problem. Daniel needed money to become part of the deal. He had no savings, so he started borrowing. Then he began using Rachel's information. Rachel stared at the papers. Did he ever plan to pay it back? Michael looked away. "I don't know." She felt tears returning. But this time, they were not tears of heartbreak. They were tears of anger. Daniel had not simply abandoned her. He had placed her future at risk. The man she thought had protected her had secretly used her trust as a tool. Rachel walked to the mirror. The wedding dress stared back at her. Hours earlier, she had looked like a bride. Now she barely recognized the woman looking back. Did Daniel leave because of Victor? Michael shook his head. No. Then why? Michael hesitated. There is something else. Rachel turned around. What? Daniel discovered that Victor's property business was in serious trouble. Rachel's mouth fell open. So Daniel ran? I think he realized he was about to lose everything. Rachel looked at the message on her phone. I'm sorry, please don't try to find me. For the first time, she understood. Daniel had not left because he had found a better woman. He had not left because he stopped loving her. He had run because his carefully planned future was collapsing. But that did not make what he had done acceptable. Michael stood. There is one more thing. Rachel looked at him. Daniel asked me to destroy those documents. Why didn't you? Because I knew your name was on them. He placed another envelope on the table. This contains everything you need to prove you never agreed to the loan. Rachel stared at it.
Why are you helping me? Michael smiled sadly. Because I once trusted Daniel too. Then he walked away. That night, Rachel did not sleep. She removed her wedding dress and placed it inside a box. She did not burn it. She did not throw it away. Instead, she locked it in the back of her wardrobe. Not because she wanted Daniel back, but because she wanted to remember exactly what happened whenever she was tempted to feel sorry for him. The next morning, Rachel went to the bank. She spent almost 4 hours proving that she had never authorized the loan. By the end of the day, she was exhausted, but she had discovered something important. Daniel had left her with a problem. He had also left her with a choice. She could spend the next few years chasing him, demanding answers, and wondering why she was not enough. Or she could stop asking why Daniel abandoned her and start asking a different question. What could she build if she stopped waiting for someone else to choose her? Rachel chose the second. She resigned from the dental clinic 2 weeks later. Then she did something nobody expected. She rented a tiny office above an old bakery. She had only a small amount of money left. No investors, no powerful connections, no wealthy partner, just an idea. Rachel had always been good at organizing people, solving problems, and making customers feel heard. She decided to build a property management service for ordinary landlords who were tired of being ignored by large companies. Her first client owned 3 apartments. Her second owned 5. Then came 12. Rachel worked from morning till midnight. She answered calls herself. She inspected apartments herself. She cleaned offices when she could not afford staff. Slowly, her little business grew. Meanwhile, Daniel disappeared completely. Months passed, then a year. Rachel stopped checking his name online. She stopped asking people about him. She stopped wondering where he was. And then, on a rainy evening, 3 years after the wedding that never happened, Rachel received an email from an unknown address. The message contained only one sentence. "Rachel, I need your help." She stared at the screen. Her hands went cold because beneath the message was a name she had not seen in years. Daniel. But this time, he was not asking her to marry him. He was asking her for something far more dangerous. Rachel read Daniel's message again. "I need your help." That was all he had written. No apology, no explanation, no "how are you?" Just 4 words that somehow brought back memories she had spent years trying to bury. She closed the laptop. "Not again," she whispered. For the next 2 days, she ignored every message that followed. Daniel sent 3 more. Then he called. Rachel watched his name appear on her phone. She did not answer. A few minutes later, another message arrived. "I know I have no right to ask you for anything, but please, just hear me out." Rachel almost deleted it. Instead, she replied with one sentence. "You have 10 minutes." Daniel called immediately. His voice sounded different, lower, tired. "Rachel, what do you want?" There was a long silence. "I made a terrible mistake." Rachel laughed quietly. "You realize that 3 years later?" "I know." "No, Daniel, you don't know. You have no idea what you left behind." "I do now." Rachel leaned back in her chair. "Then tell me why you're calling." Daniel took a deep breath. "My business failed." Rachel said nothing. "I lost everything." Still nothing. "The property company I joined collapsed. Victor disappeared with a lot of money. Several people were arrested. My savings were gone. I spent months trying to rebuild, but I couldn't." Rachel looked through the window of her office. 3 years ago, she had been sitting in a bedroom wearing a wedding dress. Now she was sitting in an office with her company name printed on the glass door. She had 24 employees. She managed properties across the city. Her business had recently won a major contract to manage a chain of apartment buildings. She had built everything without Daniel. "Why are you telling me this?" she asked. "I need a loan." Rachel closed her eyes. There it was, the reason. Not love, not regret, money. How much? Daniel named an amount. Rachel almost laughed again. "That is not a small loan." "I know." "What will you use it for?" "I want to start again." "You had years to start again." "I know." "Then try harder." Daniel became silent. Rachel could hear traffic moving outside her office. Finally, he said, "I thought you would understand." Rachel's expression hardened. "What?" "What it feels like to lose everything." Rachel stood. "Daniel, I lost everything the day you disappeared." He did not respond. "But I didn't use that pain as an excuse to destroy someone else." "I know." "No, you don't." Rachel ended the call. For the first time in 3 years, she cried. Not because she wanted Daniel, but because she finally understood something. She had spent years believing the worst thing Daniel had done was leave her at the altar. It wasn't. The worst thing was that he had never considered what would happen to her after he left. He had simply assumed she would survive, and she had. But Daniel's return was not the only surprise waiting for Rachel. The following morning, her business manager, Sophie, rushed into her office. "Rachel, you need to see this." She placed a folder on the desk. Rachel opened it. Inside was a proposal from a large property development company. They wanted Rachel's company to manage several new buildings. The contract could double her business. Rachel smiled. "This is incredible." "There's one problem," Sophie said. Rachel looked up. "What?" "They want Daniel's old company to handle the maintenance." Rachel froze. "Daniel's company?" "No, the company that bought the remaining assets from Victor's failed business." Rachel looked at the documents again. Then she saw the name of the company's director, Victor Hale. Her stomach tightened. Victor had disappeared years ago, or at least that was what Daniel had claimed. Rachel turned the page. Victor was alive, and now he was running one of the largest property maintenance companies in the city. Why would he want to work with her? Rachel spent the afternoon investigating. The more she discovered, the stranger things became. Victor had rebuilt his reputation. He had paid several old debts, he had settled lawsuits, and 6 months earlier, he had started buying properties again. But there was something else. A former employee had anonymously contacted Rachel. The woman claimed Victor had not built his new company honestly. She said he had been hiding debts and moving money between companies. Rachel immediately remembered the documents Michael had given her years earlier. The same type of business structure, the same kind of hidden loans. Rachel stared at the screen. Could Victor be doing it again? That evening, Daniel called. Rachel answered this time. "I need to ask you something." "What?" "Do you know what Victor is doing now?" Daniel became silent. That silence told Rachel everything. "You do know." "I don't want to get involved." "You already are." "I made mistakes before." "Then help me understand them." Daniel sighed. Victor didn't disappear because he lost everything. Rachel's eyes narrowed. "Then why?" "Because he had someone take the blame for him." "Who?" Daniel hesitated. Then he whispered, "Me." Rachel's heart began beating faster. "What do you mean?" "He used my name for transactions I knew nothing about. When the company collapsed, the evidence made it look like I was responsible. Rachel slowly sat down. Daniel continued. I ran because I was afraid. Rachel remembered the wedding day, the empty aisle, the message, the lies. She finally understood that Daniel had been hiding more than she ever imagined. But there was one question she needed answered. Why did you leave me? Daniel was silent for several seconds. Then he said something Rachel never expected. Because Victor threatened you. Rachel's face changed. What? He told me that if I stayed with you, he would make sure you lost everything. Rachel's hands went cold. Why didn't you tell me? Because I thought I could protect you by disappearing. Rachel stared at the phone. You didn't protect me, Daniel. I know. You destroyed me. I know. And now you want my help? Yes. Rachel stood and walked to the window. For years, she had believed Daniel abandoned her because he was selfish. Now she was learning that fear played a part, but fear did not excuse betrayal. Before she could respond, Daniel spoke again. Rachel, there's something I never told you. What? Victor knows where you are. Rachel turned toward the locked office door. And he has been watching your company for months. The room suddenly felt colder. Rachel looked at the city lights outside. Her business had become her life. Her independence had become her greatest achievement. And now, the past she thought she had buried was coming back. Not only through Daniel, but through the very man who had destroyed his life. Rachel's phone vibrated. A new message appeared. It was from an unknown number. You should never have accepted that contract. Rachel stared at the screen. Then another message arrived. Walk away while you still can. Rachel did not sleep that night. The two messages from the unknown number remained on her phone. You should never have accepted that contract. Walk away while you still can. She read them again and again. Then she did something she had learned to do since building her company. She stopped panicking and started investigating. By 8 the next morning, Rachel had called her lawyer, her accountant, and Sophie into the office. I want every detail of this contract checked, she said. Sophie nodded. Do you think Victor is behind the messages? I don't know yet. Rachel looked at the contract. But I know one thing. I won't allow fear to make decisions for me again. Her lawyer spent the morning examining the documents. By lunchtime, he found something strange. Rachel, look at this clause. She leaned over his desk. What does it mean? The development company can cancel the contract at any time, but your company remains responsible for certain financial losses. Rachel frowned. How much? Potentially enough to bankrupt you. Silence filled the room. Rachel immediately understood. This was not simply a business opportunity. It could be a trap. Someone wanted her company tied to a project that could collapse. And if it did, Rachel would take the blame. Cancel the contract, she said. Her lawyer looked surprised. Are you sure? Yes. Rachel had spent years building her business. She was not going to gamble it because someone offered her a bigger office and a larger paycheck. But before the cancellation could be sent, another problem appeared. One of Rachel's largest clients called. We are ending our agreement. Rachel's stomach tightened. Why? The development company recommended another management firm. But our contract still has 8 months remaining. I am sorry. The call ended. Within 3 hours, 2 more clients cancelled. By evening, Rachel knew something was wrong. Someone was deliberately attacking her business. Sophie walked into her office holding another folder. You need to see this. Rachel opened it. Several negative reviews had appeared online accusing her company of stealing tenants' deposits. The claims were completely false, but the reviews were spreading quickly. Rachel's reputation was being destroyed. She immediately called her lawyer.
We need to find out who is behind this. While they worked, Daniel arrived at the office. Rachel almost sent him away. Then she noticed the expression on his face. What happened? I know who's doing it. Rachel stared at him. Victor? Daniel nodded. He wants your company. Why? Because your company is valuable. Daniel explained that Victor had been trying to enter the property management market for months. Rachel's growing company stood directly in his way. He could simply compete with me. He doesn't want competition. Daniel placed a small flash drive on her desk. This contains documents I kept before I ran. Rachel looked at it. What is on it? Proof that Victor planned to use your company to hide money. Rachel's face went pale. How? By moving fake maintenance expenses through your company. Rachel stared at him. If I had signed that contract, you would have been responsible. Rachel slowly understood. Victor had not wanted to help her grow. He had wanted to use her success as cover for his crimes. But there was another question. Why are you helping me now? Daniel looked down. Because I finally understand what I did to you. Rachel said nothing. I thought running away would solve everything. Instead, it made things worse. Rachel studied him. You still haven't answered the question. What question? Why did you really abandon me? Daniel took a long breath. The morning of our wedding, Victor called me. Rachel waited. He told me he had evidence that could put me in prison. Rachel's eyes widened. He said if I married you, he would make sure you were dragged into it. Why would he care about me? Because he knew you had access to my business records. Rachel remembered something. Her name was on those loan documents. She had unknowingly become connected to Daniel's business. Daniel continued. I panicked. I thought running away would solve everything. I should have told you. I was ashamed. You were a coward. Daniel nodded. I know. Rachel looked away. For the first time, she could see the frightened young man behind the betrayal. But she also knew something else. Understanding someone did not mean trusting them again. That evening, Rachel gathered her employees. We are going to fight this properly, she told them. Nobody resigned, not one person. Instead, they worked through the night collecting records, contacting clients, and documenting every false claim. By morning, Rachel had built a case. But then her lawyer discovered something disturbing. The person spreading the false reviews was not Victor. It was someone inside Rachel's company. Someone who had access to confidential files. Someone she trusted. Rachel looked around the office. 24 employees worked for her. 24 people knew her business. One of them was betraying her. She called Sophie into her office. I need you to find out who has been accessing the company files. Sophie nodded. I'll start immediately. Rachel locked the office door behind her. She sat alone at her desk. 3 years earlier, Daniel had walked away from her. She had survived. She had built something powerful. Now, someone was trying to destroy it. But this time, Rachel was not the helpless woman standing alone at an altar. She was ready. The next morning, Sophie returned with the access report. Her face was pale. We found the person. Rachel's heart stopped. Who? Sophie placed the report on the desk. Rachel looked at the name. Then she whispered, no. Because the person accessing her confidential files was the person Rachel trusted more than anyone else, her own business partner. And beside the access records was a transfer receipt showing that the partner had received a large payment from Victor. Rachel's entire world suddenly shifted again. This was no longer about Daniel. It was about someone much closer. And Rachel had no idea how deep the betrayal went. Rachel stared at the report for almost a full minute. The name at the top was Sophie, her business partner, her friend, the woman who had stood beside her when the company had only 3 employees, the woman who had celebrated when Rachel signed her first major contract, the woman Rachel trusted with almost everything. Rachel slowly looked up. You're saying Sophie did this? Her lawyer nodded. The records show her password was used. Rachel shook her head. No, Someone could have stolen her password. That is possible. Then don't accuse her yet. Her lawyer looked surprised. Rachel closed the folder. I want proof. She called Sophie into the office. Sophie walked in smiling. You wanted to see me? Rachel studied her carefully. Yes, sit down. Sophie sat. Rachel placed the report face down on the desk. Have you been having problems with money? Sophie frowned. What kind of question is that? A simple one? No. Rachel nodded. Have you spoken to Victor recently? Sophie froze for half a second. It was small, almost impossible to notice, but Rachel noticed. No, Sophie answered. Rachel leaned back. Are you sure? Yes. Rachel said nothing. Then Sophie suddenly stood. Why are you asking me these strange questions? Because someone has been stealing confidential information from this company. Sophie stared at her. And you think it's me? I didn't say that. You don't have to. Sophie grabbed her handbag. I can't believe you would even suspect me after everything we've built together. She walked toward the door. Rachel watched her leave. Something felt wrong. Very wrong. That evening, Rachel received another anonymous message. You are looking in the wrong direction. She stared at the screen. Then another message appeared. Ask Sophie about the warehouse. Rachel's heart started racing. What warehouse? She called her lawyer. I need you to investigate a warehouse connected to Sophie. Do you have an address? No. Then we'll have to start with her financial records. Rachel agreed. The following morning, they discovered several unusual payments made from a company account. The money had gone to a storage facility on the edge of the city. Rachel drove there with her lawyer. The warehouse looked abandoned. A rusty gate surrounded the building. Rachel showed the security guard the documents. I need to see the storage unit registered under Sophie Carter. The guard checked his records. Unit 18. Rachel's stomach tightened. They opened the door. Inside were boxes, dozens of them. Rachel opened the first box. Documents. The second contained bank records. The third contained property contracts. Then Rachel saw something that made her step backward. Her own company letterhead. Someone had been creating fake contracts using her business name. Her lawyer picked up one document. This is serious. Rachel looked at the signature. It appeared to be hers, but it wasn't. Someone had copied it. Then they found a hidden compartment behind a stack of boxes. Inside was a small laptop. Rachel's lawyer opened it. There were hundreds of files, emails, bank transfers, thick invoices, and photographs. Rachel looked through them quickly. Then she saw Victor. He was sitting at a restaurant table with Sophie. Rachel felt sick. Sophie had been working with him, but there was something else. A folder labeled Rachel, Final Plan. Rachel opened it. The first document explained everything. Victor planned to use Rachel's company to move stolen money through fake property maintenance contracts. Once the transactions were complete, the company would be blamed. Rachel would lose her business. Victor would disappear, and Sophie would receive a large payment. But the final page contained a name Rachel did not expect. Daniel. Rachel's hands began to shake. What does Daniel have to do with this? Her lawyer read the page. It says Victor needed Daniel to convince you to accept the contract. Rachel's eyes widened. Daniel had not returned by accident. Victor had sent him. The loan request, the warnings, the sudden appearance of Daniel. It had all been part of a plan. Rachel immediately called him. He answered on the second ring. Rachel, you lied to me. Silence. You knew about the contract. I was trying to warn you. You were trying to get close enough to convince me to sign it. No. Then explain this. She sent him a photograph of the document. Daniel did not respond. Rachel's voice became cold. You have 5 minutes. Finally, Daniel spoke. I knew Victor wanted you to sign the contract. And you came back because he told you to. No, Then why? Daniel took a breath. Because I owed him. Rachel's heart sank. And now he wanted payment. Yes. What was the payment? Daniel's voice became almost a whisper. You. Rachel said nothing. He wanted me to convince you to sign the contract. And what were you going to do? I don't know. Rachel laughed bitterly. You came back to destroy me again. I changed my mind. After what? Daniel hesitated. After I saw what you built. Rachel's anger returned. You did suddenly grow a conscience because you saw my success. I did. No. You were impressed because you had something you wanted. Daniel did not argue. Rachel ended the call. She stood in the middle of the warehouse, surrounded by evidence of the people who had betrayed her. For years, she had believed Daniel was the worst mistake of her life. Now she understood something. Daniel was not the only mistake. She had trusted too easily. She had assumed everyone who smiled beside her wanted the best for her. That would never happen again. Rachel took the laptop. We are going to the police. Her lawyer nodded. But before they left, Rachel noticed one final file. It was a video. She opened it. Victor appeared on the screen. He was speaking to someone off camera. If Rachel refuses to sign, use Daniel. A second voice answered. And if he refuses? Victor smiled. Then remind him what happens when people disappoint me. Rachel paused the video. Daniel had been threatened, but that did not erase what he had done. Then the warehouse light suddenly went off. Rachel froze. Her lawyer reached for his phone. A loud metallic sound came from the entrance. The gate was closing. Someone was locking them inside. Rachel grabbed the laptop. Someone knows we're here. Footsteps echoed outside. Slow, calm, getting closer. Then a voice came through the warehouse door. Rachel. She knew that voice. It was Sophie. But Sophie was not alone. Rachel heard another man's voice behind her. Victor. We need to have a little conversation.
Rachel stepped backward as the warehouse door opened. Sophie entered first. Victor followed. He looked completely different from the frightened man Rachel had imagined from Daniel's stories. He was calm, well-dressed, almost amused. You should not have come here, Victor said. Rachel held the laptop tightly. You should not have tried to destroy my company. Victor smiled. Destroy you? No, I was giving you an opportunity. You forged documents in my name. You would have made a lot of money. And taking the blame when everything collapsed? Victor shrugged. That is how business works. Rachel's lawyer stepped forward. It doesn't work that way. Victor laughed. You lawyers always believe paperwork can save people. Sophie looked uncomfortable. Rachel turned toward her. How much did he pay you? Sophie lowered her eyes. Enough. Enough to betray me? Sophie finally looked up. You don't understand. I understand perfectly. No, you don't, Sophie pointed at Rachel. You built this company and forgot the people who helped you build it. Rachel stared at her. I gave you a partnership. You gave me a percentage. You wanted more. I wanted what I deserved. Rachel shook her head. You didn't deserve to destroy me. Sophie looked away. Victor stepped closer. Enough. He held out his hand, the laptop. Rachel refused. You're not getting it. Victor's expression changed. You have no idea how much trouble you are creating. Rachel looked directly at him. I know exactly what I'm doing. Then she smiled. Victor frowned. What? You made one mistake. What mistake? You thought I came here alone. Victor's face changed. Outside the warehouse, police sirens suddenly became louder. Victor turned toward the door. Sophie gasped. Rachel's lawyer smiled. We sent the evidence to the authorities before coming here. Victor rushed toward the exit. The warehouse doors opened. Several officers entered. Victor stopped. For the first time, the calm expression disappeared from his face. Don't move. Victor looked at Rachel. She said nothing. He was arrested. Sophie was arrested too. But before they took her away, Sophie turned toward Rachel. I'm sorry. Rachel looked at her. I hope one day you understand what you threw away. Sophie lowered her head. Then she was gone.
The investigation lasted several months. Victor's financial records revealed years of fraud. Sophie admitted that she had helped him create false documents. Several companies were investigated. And Daniel? Daniel turned himself in. He told the investigators everything he knew. He handed over messages, bank records, and names. He did not ask Rachel to forgive him. He simply accepted responsibility for his part. Months later, Rachel's company was cleared. The false accusations were removed. Her clients returned. Some even apologized for leaving when the rumors started. But Rachel had changed. She no longer believed success meant having the biggest office or the most expensive car. Success meant being able to sleep peacefully at night. It meant knowing that everything she had built belonged to her. One afternoon, Daniel came to her office. Rachel agreed to see him. He looked older, but there was something different about him. He looked honest. "I came to say thank you," he said. Rachel raised an eyebrow. "For what?" "For giving me the chance to tell the truth. I didn't do that for you." "I know." Daniel sat down. "I have been working at a small repair shop." Rachel nodded. "I heard. I start early every morning." "Good." He smiled faintly. "For the first time in my life, I don't hate working hard." Rachel said nothing. Daniel looked at her. "I know I can never undo what I did." "No." "I also know you don't owe me forgiveness." "No." He nodded. "I just wanted to tell you that I'm sorry." Rachel studied him. 3 years ago, she would have given anything to hear those words. Now they did not control her anymore. "Thank you for saying it." Daniel stood. He reached the door, then stopped. "Rachel?" "Yes?" "Are you happy?" Rachel looked around her office. The photographs of her employees, the awards on the shelf, the plans for new buildings, the life she had built. "Yes," she said. Daniel smiled. "I'm glad." He walked away. Rachel watched him disappear down the hallway. She did not chase him. She did not cry. She simply returned to work. But the story was not quite over. A month later, Rachel received a letter from a legal firm. Inside was an unexpected offer. A large property group wanted to buy her company. The amount was more money than Rachel had ever imagined having. Sophie had once told her that success meant becoming powerful enough that nobody could hurt you. Rachel no longer believed that. Money could not stop betrayal. Power could not stop heartbreak. But wisdom could stop you from making the same mistake twice. Rachel rejected the offer. Instead, she decided to expand the company herself. She opened 2 new offices, she hired more young people, and she created a small program that helped women who had lost their jobs learn property management skills. Linda watched her daughter grow into someone completely different from the frightened bride who had returned home years earlier. One evening, Linda asked, "Do you ever think about Daniel?" Rachel smiled. "Sometimes." "Do you still love him?" Rachel thought for a moment. "I loved the man I believed he was. And now? Now I know the difference between loving someone and trusting them." Linda nodded. Rachel looked out the window. The city light stretched across the horizon. Once she had stood at an altar waiting for someone who never came. Now thousands of people depended on the company she had built. She had lost a wedding. She had lost a relationship. She had lost years believing in someone who did not deserve her trust. But she had gained something far greater. She had found herself. And just when Rachel believed the chapter with Daniel was finally closed, her phone rang. The caller was an unknown number. She answered. A woman's voice spoke softly. "Are you Rachel?" "Yes." "My name is Emma. I used to work for Victor." Rachel sat upright. "What do you want?" "I found something before I left his company." "What?" "A file with your name on it." Rachel's heart began to race. "What kind of file?" The woman hesitated. "It was created before your wedding." Rachel's face went pale. "Before my wedding?" "Yes." "And what was inside?" The woman lowered her voice. "Proof that Daniel did not abandon you because he was afraid." Rachel froze. "Then why did he leave?" There was a long silence. Then Emma said, "Because someone paid him to." Rachel could not move. "Someone paid Daniel to leave me?" Emma's voice trembled. "Yes." "Who?" "I don't know." Rachel gripped the phone. "You called me with this information. You must know something." "I know where the file came from. I don't know who ordered it." "Where is the file?" "I can bring it to you." They agreed to meet the following afternoon. Rachel arrived early. Emma handed her a brown envelope. "I found it hidden inside an old company cabinet." Rachel opened it. Inside were copies of bank transfers, messages, and a signed agreement. Her eyes stopped at one page.
Daniel had received a large payment exactly 3 days before their wedding. The sender was not Victor. It was a woman named Helen Moore. Rachel frowned. "Who is Helen?" Emma shook her head. "I don't know." Rachel continued reading. The agreement contained one instruction. Daniel must end the relationship before the wedding. He must leave the city immediately and never contact Rachel again. Rachel's hands trembled. There was another condition. Daniel would receive the remaining money only if he kept Rachel away from a particular property company. Rachel suddenly understood. Someone had known about her talent for property management long before she built her company. Someone had wanted to prevent her from entering the industry. But why? Rachel took the documents to her lawyer. After several days of investigation, they discovered the truth. Helen Moore was the former owner of a small property company Rachel's mother had once worked for. Years earlier, Linda had discovered that Helen's company was secretly overcharging elderly tenants. Linda reported it. The company eventually collapsed. Helen blamed Linda, but she had never forgotten. When Helen learned that Rachel was engaged to Daniel, she saw an opportunity to hurt the family. She paid Daniel to disappear, knowing Rachel would be devastated. Daniel accepted the money because he was already drowning in debt. He had convinced himself that leaving Rachel would solve his problems. It did not. He lost everything anyway. Rachel sat quietly after hearing the truth. For years, she had believed Daniel left because he was afraid. Then she learned he had been manipulated. Now she discovered something even harder. He accepted money to abandon her. He chose himself. That was the truth. Rachel did not confront Helen. She did not seek revenge. Instead, she used the document to reopen the old case. Helen was eventually forced to face the consequences of the fraud she had committed years earlier. Daniel never received another chance with Rachel. When he learned the truth, he sent her one final message. "I was paid to leave, but I stayed away because I was too ashamed to return." Rachel read it, then deleted it. Not because she hated him, because she no longer needed his explanation to understand her own worth. Several years later, Rachel stood inside the headquarters of her growing company. Her employees applauded as she announced the opening of their 4th office. Linda stood in the front row. Rachel looked around the room and smiled. She remembered the young woman who had once stood alone at an altar, convinced her life was over. That woman had been wrong. Her life had not ended that day. It had begun. Rachel never married Daniel. She eventually met someone else, but this time she did not rush into love simply because she was afraid of being alone. She chose carefully. She trusted slowly. And most importantly, she never again allowed another person's decision to determine her value. Daniel had abandoned her before the wedding. Years later, he returned needing her help. She gave him something more valuable than money. She gave him the chance to become honest, but she did not give him another place in her heart. Rachel finally understood something. Forgiveness does not mean reopening a door you worked hard to close. Sometimes, the greatest revenge is not watching someone suffer. It is building a life so meaningful that their absence no longer matters. And that was exactly what Rachel did. She walked away from the empty aisle. She walked toward her future, and this time she chose the direction herself.